It was a fun game, and it sucks that the officiating takes a little bit of steam out of it. And for me, watching it on Twitter was very entertaining because it's a reflection for me. I think how you can get lost in your own team's Twitter sphere, where the outrage was all of Packers Twitter, right?
Yeah.
I think the rest of the football world might be like, yeah, the Lions got away with one, but it wasn't like this big story as it looks in that other sphere. And I looked back because I wanted to really try and like look at it objectively. And the Christian Watson touchdown, or the touchdown that got called back because of Watson, I think that was the right call. And I think a lot of Packers fans were leaning on that as the real issue. And I think the non-holding call on, was it Nixon who busted through?
Yes, but to your point real quick, they're comparing it to the context of Amon-Ra St. Brown doing the same thing and not getting a flag called.
Yeah, but it wasn't the same thing. It was some contact.
But he's not running a route. That's the problem, because it can only happen if you're throwing behind the line of scrimmage. So I don't disagree with you. I think Watson's running a route, but dude, if you lower your shoulder and knock him down, like I don't fault the refs for throwing a flag.
Yeah, that's like in real time. You're like, oh, he knocked him on his ass. Is what it looks like.
This has been the problem with officiating forever. And I said this last night too. If it's my team, I'm going to say the same exact thing. If it was your team or anybody else's team, it's the consistency that's infuriating. Because when it's not consistent for both sides, then it's like, well, that's going to take some steam out of the game.
The Amon-Ra one, you're talking about the one where he caught the pass right at the...
No, that was a push off. I'm saying Amon-Ra St. Brown does a pick play, literally like what Watson does. And he literally runs straight, just does this and stops running around.
Oh, when they got like 3 yards on the swing pass to
give it like
whatever. Yeah. And even that one, like the reason I think it's tough to throw it there versus the one on Watson is like when Watson hit Kirby Joseph, it was Joseph, right? Was it Joseph?
It was Joseph.
Like he fell down. So he hit him, guy's on the ground. The other ones that they didn't call, it's like a little bit of contact. And if, like, I'm being honest, like I don't want the one on Amon-Ra called on either one of his routes. Like a little bit of contact there, like that's when games start to get super nitpicky with officiating. And if they start calling that, then it gets annoying. The one with Watson, it's hard to not call because the contact led to a dude falling down, right? And whether that's right or wrong, when you're watching it live, it's like, oh yeah,
it'll look worse than it is.
Yeah, it looks worse.
Yeah, I think
consistency. I think you're right, and you're 100% fair. Like we say it, like, saying officiating and consistency. Just throw it into GPS at some point, any given week, any given game, and it's because they're not as efficient as they should be.
Correct. And cool blue. Oop, fade for the kitty. GG's.
Oh, wow. Is that a pancreas?
No, it's unfortunately a loss. But
also the Lions got backed up with that ticky-tacky hold, too.
Well, the Nixon hold, I think, is like the most egregious one, too. And the NFL editing that out. That one was not great. But again, I'm saying all this with the context of, and still the Packers had an opportunity. Because if you're going in there, and I'm sorry, there's just not the world we live in. If you're going into any NFL game, based on, and we have talked about this every year ad nauseum, expecting the officiating to be consistent and perfect, you are watching the wrong sport. And it is infuriating. I would love for it to be more consistent, but the Packers, the truth is, had opportunities to win that football game, even with the officiating not being that great. And yet they didn't do it, and that's just unfortunately the way it's going to go sometimes. Yeah. So it sucks, especially that we're even talking about this. But if we're looking for excuses, you look at the first half in terms of how the Packers played. They did not come out looking good. And on top of that, they couldn't stop them on fourth down. We can convert on third down. And it just led to missed opportunities. So again, the calling back of the touchdown really sucked to take points off the board. And I know that there were some plays that penalties that extended Lions drives and also gave them points. But again, at the end of the game, you have an opportunity to stop them on fourth down when they're crazily going for it.
Yeah.
And then get done.
No, Detroit lost Aleem McNeil in that game too with a head injury. I think they said it's a concussion today. Then during the game, they said not a concussion, a head injury.
Williams got a concussion. Drew, I think you could look at the officiating and call it inconsistent without taking away. Because again, I'm not taking anything away from the Detroit Lions. This is just another week of saying, hey, the refs are inconsistent in the NFL.
Yeah.
Shocker.
No, you're saying that level-headedly. And when you go onto when you go into the world of Twitter, the outrage is noticeable, and then you notice it was one-sided. But
yeah, I'm just going to be against a team that it's impacting 100%. Yeah.
And honestly, Detroit could get lopsided officiating for 6 more years straight before I'll start complaining. I mean, I did a video about all the times they got dicked with horrible calls.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Hands to the face, baby.
On a division game, yeah, I get it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I am above the bitching. Sure. If that were the Broncos, I would have been one of the loudest voices complaining. I'm not trying to sit on a high horse here, on a pedestal. I would be the most annoying fuck on Twitter if that happened to the Broncos. Okay? Let's be clear. As soon as it hurts my team or a team I don't want to win, I will be annoying and I will be loud. It was just an observation. I was like, oh man, how bad was this? It is angry Packers fans, and I understand it.
Yeah.
I got you to be more upset today. You're too level-headed for my liking.
I'm also exhausted. Yeah, but I mean, I think it was like a huge part of it, to be completely honest with you, is like, I'm not on Twitter during the games. Like I'll literally like hop over and be like, and then just send it. And I'm not looking at anything because like I'm watching the game. So like, there's a couple times I was like, oh, don't like that. Don't like that. But
sometimes you'll get it from the chat, right? Where it's like, you can get a pulse on on something that's happening that you don't really see during the game because you're so disoriented from calling the game, trying to make sure you're staying true to everybody who's super chatting and making sure like if they got a question, you're answering it. And sometimes you miss something on the game and then everybody watching will start commenting on it and they're like, oh God, I didn't see it. I'll have to go back and look at that thing later.
Yeah, exactly.
One of my favorite things is like after a Broncos game, when you do go back onto social and there's like a thing that becomes like a huge talking point that you didn't maybe even fully realize during the game.
Oh, 100%.
And it's usually a bad call or a dirty play that a lot of people see or something weird that happened that you just missed.
Matt, I mean, because they did this with pass interference. Like they did it with like coaches challenging it. And again, sometimes they do reverse it, but then it's again, I think I've said this so many times, especially this year, because we have a human error in the game and it is promoted, you are getting different things from the broadcast. You are getting different games, like things from the game, just watching it live. You're getting different things from the officiating crew. And a lot of times those are conflicting, in which the broadcast saying that's a penalty, refs are not throwing a penalty. Refs throw a penalty, and officiating crew's like, the broadcasting crew's like, I don't like that. That doesn't look like one. Or then we slow it down and we see it in slow motion. It looks 10 times worse than it is in real time. The problem is we have so much technology within the game, but the foundation of officiating is human error. And just, hey, it's subjective. Every single time. How many times we talked about that teams have to prepare for the officiating crews?
Yeah.
Like that's
even going back to the Broncos-Browns game.
Yeah.
Sometimes they miss the non-subjective ones.
Oh, I know.
Where Wyatt Teller jumped off sides on 4th and 1 for the Browns, and they didn't call it. Luckily, Denver got a stop after that, but that would have been one thing that if the Broncos lose that game, talk about being angry.
It's a difference maker. Yeah, I mean, dude, like there was missed holding calls for both sides. On top of that, like I just saw it this morning. The Lions were like lined up like in the neutral zone, and they didn't call. And again, like this, I'll never forget I forget which player I was talking to. But they're like, players are cheating on every single down, in which they are trying to get away with a hold, get away with a hands to the face, right? Get away with a defensive pass interference or an offensive pass interference. Yeah. And it's just a matter of, hey, if the refs don't call it, it didn't happen, right? Yeah. It's the famous Bill Belichick, right? With the gloves. What was that for Edelman? Like wearing, what was it? Like the red gloves or the white gloves that it was standing out so you could see when he was holding. Yeah. Because they want to like have it be the opposing team's jersey, like color. That happens on every single play. And it's up to the officials who have a tough job to try and enforce that.
Yeah.
And to do that consistently is difficult. I will give them that. But again,
and there's also this line too, if we're like you're I guess like over policing a game for those things, it becomes incredibly annoying to watch that football game, right? And like the Seahawks approach used to be in their secondary, just beat the piss, hold, do whatever you want. Maybe they'll call it early, but they're not going to keep calling it on your secondary
over and over and over again.
And maybe that's Detroit's philosophy with their like pass interference. Like just do it until they have to stop calling it at some point.
Well, dude, I mean, there was like 10 penalties in the first half.
Yeah.
Like there was so much laundry in that first half of that game.
Yeah.
So,
you want it just to be on both sides. You want
just want consistency.
If the secondary's getting away with a little contact, that's fine, as long as both secondaries can do it, right?
Correct.
The one play Packers fans can be upset about was I like the no call. I love the no call where Jordan Love's face kind of gets hit by a hand or arm.
Yeah, it was really early on. He got hit in the head.
Yeah. But if you want to be mad, I understand that one, because a lot of times it doesn't matter the intent. If a quarterback's face mask head gets touched, hit, or whatever, they throw the flag. That play, it wasn't an intentional sort of thing. It was like an arm hit it as they were like going around. I like the no call there, but I also understand if Packers fans are upset about that not getting called, because let's be honest, if it's a Mahomes, if it's a Josh Allen, if it's one of those protected quarterbacks in those situations, and I don't think Jordan Love is one of those guys yet.
No.
And I saw Bo Nix take a shot in that Browns game, didn't get the call. It's like he hasn't earned the right to get those calls.
It's a thing,
yet.
dude. Like it is. I mean, I bring up Justin Fields all the time, and like Bears fans are like, dude, like he's getting killed out there. What are we doing? And we're not getting a single flag.